Welcome to Laptop Radio. Today's topic is evolving your comfort zone, and we have Brian Elves with us. Hello, Brian.
Hi, Michelle. How you doing?
Doing good? So today's a special talk. I'm not going to ask you my standard question, maybe except for the one at the end. Let's talk about comfort zone because it's one of the topics that I wanted to talk to you for a very long time.
Yes. Yeah, it's actually, I think, one of our first conversations on the plane.
I remember I met you on the plane, and I was either on the way back from Puerto Rico or flying to Africa.
I think you had already been to Africa because you were telling me the story about you buying a drone and learning how to take it apart and put it back together again and buying all kinds of parts for it and then not being able to use it.
Yeah, that's so funny. I was planning a trip to South Africa, and my vision is to bring a drone to Africa and do an aerial shoot of all the animals in Africa. And I probably learned everything in a day or two that same week. So I did that, and I took the drone to Africa. And this is before drone even became popular. So I was afraid that I won't be able to pass custom because I don't really know whether the airplane people would know what a drone is. So it's in one of my pink suitcase, and that's the only thing there. Super light. I went to South Africa, and we went to the safari. I asked the safari leader whether we could use the drone. I shouldn't have asked, but I did. And he told me that if you use it here, you might get us killed.
It's a good thing you did not use it.
So I did not use it. I guess if I were by myself, I would have used it. Because I think the elephants have a really good memory and they would remember you. But I think if you could show that you're not using it as a weapon, but only as a photography, I think the animals would be more forgiving.
Yeah, I think so too. I think they have much more insight and in more touch with reality, with interactions with humans.
So you were in a special seat, and I happened to sit right next to you on the plane. And I remember vividly that you asked me something, and I said, "Yeah, I just been working on my comfort zone," and you were totally cool with it, which surprised me. So that was like the weirdest experience ever because I think I told you that every year I've been doing something that scares me, and I think the radio show is part of it actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had a former boss that I think taught me a lot about comfort zones and the fact that each and every one of us has a comfort zone that we're in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's what I learned most from him. And when I started, I think, having much more of an awareness of my own comfort zone, because I think people who are super comfortable with who they are and what they do and everything from their job to their social life to where they live to how they travel or not travel, that's their safe zone. And for some people, for a lot of people, that's perfectly okay. And they don't even want to realize that they're in a comfort zone, that there's no greater self to be discovered by taking chances and seeking new experiences and pushing their self boundaries. And at the same time, I forget what I had been doing, but I still have a fear of heights. And I thought whether or not I'm going to overcome it or die from it, I decided, all right, I'm going to jump out of an airplane.
You did that, didn't you?
Yeah. The scariest part about that whole day wasn't even the taking that first step out of the plane, which I can still feel. It was the plane ride up to 10,000 feet.
Wow.
And knowing that there's no turning back and I've already committed and I've got to do this. Yeah. Not crazy about being up on a 40-foot ladder. I can be up certain heights, but no, heights aren't fun for me. And I thought the best way to overcome it is to go skydiving.
Yeah, I do the same thing. I have a fear of heights, and I think I went to Costa Rica and did zip lining and platform jumping and rappelling.
Mhm.
I think zip lining was fine because I was all geared up.
Mm.
Rappelling was fine as well because I'm just slipping down from a rope. But it was the
Mhm.
platform jumping. You're basically on top of a very high forest and you're jumping from one platform to another.
Yeah.
And I just let go of that person. Like I just kept holding to the person that chained us. I was just like, no, I don't want to be like Tarzan. I don't know what happened. Off and I was in the middle of the air and I was screaming like crazy. And then I was on the other side. If I were in an airplane like you did, I would have just
I know you would have jumped because I know that you not easily overcome your fears, but I know you realize that you can overcome your fears.
Mhm,
And I think that's a big part of it, right? So the first, I think, actualization,
mhm.
if you want to grow or if you want to get out of your comfort zone into the next layer of comfort zone, first is you have to accept and acknowledge and be aware of I'm in a comfort zone.
Yeah,
And just the thought of jumping for you and me, that fear keeps us in that comfort zone because there's no harm standing on the ground.
yeah,
Feel safe. We've been doing it all our life. And it's the fear. And I think the lack of self confidence and the lack of knowledge and the lack of experience that sometimes holds us back, or we choose to not
yeah.
allow us to overcome that, to keep in that comfort zone.
One thing I realized too is I remember when I went to Costa Rica, and since then, I was just doing every year the next year. I went to New Zealand to Victoria and I did black water rafting. And that's when you, with a tire, you would basically climb on the top of waterfalls inside a cave and you would jump backwards into the water. Come back scary after that though. Because I guess you've done it before. If you're able to jump from one platform to the really top of a forest and you're inside a cave on top of waterfalls that are really high, that didn't become scary. What happened though, because I didn't adjust my tire, after I jumped off the waterfall backwards, I got pushed inside the cave because some of the caves have different heights. Some of them are actually really low.
Mhm.
And I got pushed into the water. And so I was falling inside the water. Someone, you could call it drowning, got someone's leg, and then the leader also saved me and put hot water on me. It was kind of fun. But I would do it again. Go inside a cave and do all kinds of things just to see glowworms,
Mhm.
which is a lot of fun. And I remember asking them, and they were like, "Oh no, this is easy." Their standard is really different from us Californians. You have water really close to your ear sometimes, and you're climbing all the way up and jumping all the way down with a tire. Completely different, but you get used to it. And when you do it with a group of people, there's just really some kind of comfort in it. I guess it's not so bad after you've done it, even if
No.
you have experienced the worst.
And I think you bring up a good point that there's a built-in comfort
Mhm,
with other human beings because we're human.
mhm,
So we have this, I think, innate and natural connection to each other.
mhm,
So even though we might not have the most self-confidence or the most knowledge or the experience in this new endeavor that we're attempting, we feel better and more comfortable because there are other humans around us. And I think it is much more difficult to venture off on your own
mhm.
to do anything new, and because it takes so much effort to go from your comfort zone. Just I think the most challenging part of attempting and achieving a new and greater comfort zone is that first fear zone that you
Mhm.
have to break through. That's what holds us back. That's what keeps us in our current comfort zone, is the fear. It's the unknown.
Yeah, I want to talk about that now. And I remember when I met you on the plane, that's when I was quitting or leaving my job at a big company with a hefty salary. And I think I was living in a bubble. I really don't know how much you need to live to survive. But I remember that someone asked me, do you want to be comfortable or do you want to live on the edge? And I remember that I chose that I wanted to live on the edge, not knowing all the details of
Hmm.
what I'm getting into. And I did that. I remember I remember that there was really one book that you talk about, which is called The Tales of Power. I didn't really understand a lot of stuff that you said at that time because, of course, obviously, I haven't read a lot of these books. But I was probably at the beginning of my evolution journey.
Hmm.
And then I read it, and it talks about the unknown without calling it the unknown. And it mentioned that you have to fight naked with a mountain lion. And I remember at that time as well, I think a lot of things happened synchronistically.
Hmm.
Also had a friend and he just kept talking about fighting with a mountain lion. He lived in San Francisco near the Presidio. And I was just like, what are you talking about? Like, how do you fight with a mountain lion? He also talked about time travel. And
Hmm.
we were talking about the law of thermodynamics, talking to animals. And I remember that I thought this guy is crazy and nuts. So I actually responded to him on Facebook
Hmm.
and he's like, what do you mean you're talking to a mountain lion? And we can't talk to animals. And I remember you were talking about mentorship and how each one of us is a mentor of each other.
Hmm.
And I was just like, there's no way I could be a mentor for you, right? Because you have so much more wisdom than me.
I have been fortunate. The kids are older now, but when they were growing up, I was fortunate to have been able to coach them in sports.
Mhm.
And I coached all three of my kids, and I coached my youngest daughter probably for the most amount of years. And the teams that I coached,
Mhm.
I felt like I was the team manager, not the leader, because we're all mentors to each other.
Yep.
I don't care how old you are or the kids were. You could be 10 years old and mentor me in a way, teach me in a way, show me something that I didn't know existed.
Mhm.
And the only way I could be taught that was from this 10-year-old or 12-year-old or
Yeah.
20-year-old or 100-year-old. And I think it's taken me, we're constantly evolving
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
individuals. And I've learned to acknowledge other human beings and be open to and to see and to listen to what they have to teach me, regardless of my setting, regardless of anything.
I think I'm talking to you because it's really different. I think we really grow up in a society where everything and wisdom is really assigned by age. We are taught by teachers who are older than us. There's some level of similarity. And it's really hard to find people who see and respect other people as human beings. I can tell you that my niece and nephew teach me things I really don't know. They
Mhm.
probably know TikTok more than I do. Or I have to ask them to teach me a dance. That's really awesome. And it was really not until I finished the book. I finished the book, Tales of Power, when I went to Santa Barbara or Lompoc to visit a friend, and she took me to a spiritual retreat. There's this really place where there's a lot of vegetarian food, and people basically are really awesome. And I was just there for a few days. I finished the book there. After I finished the book, I was just like, oh, unknown, I see. And in the book, Tales of Power, the main character is wrestling with a mountain lion naked, and that is like his or her rite of passage.
Mhm.
And then I was outside, and there were horses there, and I actually recorded the whole thing. And it was just like, horse, come here, and the horse was really far from me. And of course, the horse came and walked directly toward me. So that's like talking to animals. I got the wrestling with lions part, and I think I realize what you said about mentorship because that was also in the book.
Mm-hmm.
And I immediately sent a text to my other friend and said, hey, you're right. Animals, and two, wrestling with mountain lions. I don't know. It just seems like everything just pretty much lined up.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was really awesome. And then of course you continue to grow. So I guess one year my comfort zone for that year was to be known. And for me, I don't really care about being famous. I don't really care if my LinkedIn has nothing. I don't care about going to my high school graduation or my college graduation. So, so my comfort zone is not, to be famous. It's just to
Mm-hmm.
be known. It's different. It's you care to be known. And I think I put it on Facebook. I was just like, this year, my outside comfort zone project is to be known.
Mm-hmm.
And I make some YouTube videos to somewhere at Stanford. So game that one of my friends invited me. And someone actually works at is a DJ for the radio station. And without me asking,
Mm-hmm.
she was like, Michelle, I would like to mentor you. And this is me without asking, okay? It's just so weird. Out of the blue, I've never thought about radio. I know nothing about the radio or even podcasting at that time.
Yep.
But I think the universe just works to give you,
I think the first step is being open to any possibility.
yeah,
Like whatever the universe has to offer us,
yeah,
we're going to be open to it. We might not
uh,
agree with it. We might disagree with it. We might accept it. We might not accept it. But that's part of just being universally open to whatever is out there for us. And if we manifest, if we think about just like Tales of Power, if
yeah,
we manifest, all right, I need to break through this. And one of my favorite sayings is, I don't know what I don't know.
mhm,
We don't know what we don't know.
mhm,
So it's really difficult to figure out what the questions are, how to go about seeking a new avenue or new channel to go
mhm.
down. But the first step, again, is just being open to it all.
Yeah,
And then if you're open to it, like most fear is healthy,
mhm,
not life and death situations, although some of those are also healthy.
mhm,
But fear is healthy because it can teach you things about yourself that you never knew.
mhm,
And it's getting through that fear and getting to that next level of realizing, hold on, I can get through this fear. And if I can get through this fear, then I can learn how to platform jump or skydive, or what I used to love doing was scuba diving and taking higher levels of certification courses,
mhm,
because each course was a bigger challenge. And I went from one comfort zone, one course, to the next course, to the next course.
mhm.
And I was then, which was probably 25 years ago, that I realized I was always in this comfort zone.
Mhm.
And once I realized I could fight through that fear and get to a point where I was okay learning something new
Mhm.
and experiencing something different and getting to a new level of comfort zone.
Mhm.
And then realizing that's how I'm going to grow.
Yeah.
That's where humans grow, is when they continue this evolutionary journey of almost repeating itself. And you're not really repeating, but you're just expanding your comfort zone.
Yeah. There's levels and layers of comfort zones. Once you achieve, then there's other ones as well. I'm just thinking about taking notes and note taking and control, which is really related to letting go. Because I feel like if you want to control a situation, you want things to be a certain way because it provides that safety and certainty.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you let go and just really go with the flow, yeah, and that scares a lot of people, especially type A's and type. Know what happens?
Yeah.
We don't know whether something is successful or not. That is determined by society.
And that's part of the fear of
Yeah,
the comfort zone that you're in, is what's society going to think?
yeah,
What's other humans going to think about this? But I think you put it perfectly, because we choose our comfort zones based on what we can control.
yeah,
And it's not until
yeah,
we're just open for, I don't know if I'm going to like this new experience. I don't know if I'm going to like this new human being,
yeah,
or I might get hurt, or I might fail. And
yeah.
it's not financially failing, or maybe it is for a lot of people. It is, because some people are okay with making minimum wage or making a salary that pays their expenses, and they're okay with that.
Yeah,
But it's not until you let go that you realize, I'm not only going to be okay, but I'm going to be better than I was.
yeah. It sounds really scary. At the other side of it, it's actually pretty awesome.
Mm.
Like one of the things that I've been doing is before I would take notes, because I was like pretty much a nerd. And for the last couple of years, I have been not living, quite type A because I used to get like,
Yeah,
like
you're type A. You'll never not be type
yeah,
A.
I try not to be type A, so I try not to have a model home and like I've learned that because I think it just kind of helped me with the balance. Yeah, not untype A. I tried to untype A myself. I reform
Mhm.
type A. And it's not bad when I don't take notes. I still remember the things that I want to remember, and my brain
Right.
works better. I feel like my subconscious tell me things that I need to know
Yeah. Yep.
because
Yeah.
I'm not taking notes. I'm relying on my brain, and it's
Right.
interesting when I'm doing and working on projects with other people. And they were like, "Oh, Michelle, you got to take notes." I'm like, "Look, do you want me to learn this, or do you want me to take notes and have it on a
Mhm.
piece of paper?" Because I wanted to learn it and want it to be in my head. And if I want it
Yep.
in my head, I'm just gonna brain is gonna be trained to
Yep.
know this, and it works really well. Like I remember everything. I had
Mhm.
a good memory before, but like now I have a
Yeah.
super good memory because I don't take notes.
And you're focused on what you want to be focused on.
Yeah,
And right, taking notes, that's what you're focused on. You're not focused on learning.
I guess
You're
the fear before was, oh, what if I forget? So I'm gonna take notes to remember. But then now, oh, I'm gonna remember what I need to remember at the right time.
Yeah. And I mentioned to you when we were going back and forth about this, that going through a new comfort zone, or trying to get through this comfort zone, and I've already made the decision. I'm going to be moving from, I grew up outside of Boston
Mhm.
and lived in Maryland for 15 years. And next year I'm going to be moving to Florida,
Wow.
which is where our office is. And never thought of myself as a Florida guy. Liked visiting, but that was about it. But on the other hand, I'm looking forward to this new adventure.
I mean, it
And
sounds awesome.
I'm talking to my daughter about it.
Mhm.
And she's my daughter,
Mhm.
and she's going to be 30 next week, which makes me really old. But I was talking to her, and she's a mentor
Mhm.
to me, just like you, because I see what she has been able to do in life, and have learned that, wow, it's okay to test this side of your life or that
Mhm.
side of your life, or try new things. And I'm telling her this, and she's like, how do you feel about that? And I said, I'm nervous because it's change. And I'm nervous because I've been in a certain comfort zone.
Yeah.
And she said to me right off the bat, she said, what's the worst that can happen? She said,
Yeah.
A, look at it as a new experience and a new
Yeah.
adventure. And she said, what's the worst that can happen? You don't like it? It doesn't work? So then you do something else.
Yeah.
And I said, you're exactly right.
Yeah. I was talking to one of my friends from one of my old company, and I was just telling him that I was traveling the last couple of years. And the first question that I was asked is, do you travel by yourself? I said, yes. I think pretty much most of the time by myself.
Hmm.
The last 2 years, there was just 1 or 2 times where I traveled with a project. And that's normal to me. And it has been normal to me even when I was with a bigger company. And there's no fear of me eating by myself. I was eating in Canada at a restaurant. I was just eating at a bar because I was there going to speaking at a conference. And one of the ladies was just like, you eat by yourself? I'm like, yeah, I don't see what is wrong with that. Just like with my friend, I was just like, I don't really see what's wrong with flying by myself. I mean,
Hmm.
going from one city to another, looking for airports, looking for homes, that's all normal. You get
Hmm.
really used to it. And so I don't know where I stay that
Hmm.
night. I would always get hotels at the last minute.
I still need to be that type A personality where I need to know where I'm going to stay.
So if you travel a lot, like even before all these blockchain crypto stuff,
Hmm. Yep.
I think if you travel a lot, you just really know how the system works. So sometimes
Yeah.
prices are lower at the last minute, and you don't get penalized if you cancel. It's just more convenient because of that, because I don't know where I'm going to be half an hour. So it's just really better for me to book a hotel when I get there.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. No, and I get that. And I agree with you. I've been traveling for 20 plus
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
And when I started traveling, it was a bit scary. I had been flying most of my life, but
Yeah.
not on a weekly basis for my
Yeah.
job. And I quickly learned, you just mentioned that it's the same process.
Yeah.
It's the same. And once you get through a couple of those experiences, you realize I can go anywhere in the world and not be nervous.
You get comfortable with it. It's the same process. Hotels operate the same. Once you understand how the world works, a lot of things become a lot easier. And I remember even that year when I first met you, there's a conference, CS, for example, I didn't know about when I was working at a big company. Someone was just like, oh, you should go to CS. And that was like, what, 2 days notice? I didn't get a ticket. When I went to CS, I just knew about it. Then my first one, like 2 days before the conference. You know what I did? I just drove all the way to Vegas because the flights were $500
Mhm.
to $1,000. And I just got a ticket somehow. I think once you gain different experiences, there's skills that are transferable that you can utilize. I think you have, even in Tales of Power, it says that you really have all the skills that you need.
You do. Yeah. And I think it goes back to being open to self discovery and self evolution. Because
Mhm.
I think once you break through the fear into that next layer of, okay, I can do this. I need to learn a new skill or a new task or new information about something. But once I have that down, then I can start to grow. And that's when your comfort zones really expand almost exponentially. Because once you realize you can do it, then there's really no limitations on you as a human.
Definitely, since I've been speaking at different conferences and I don't get butterflies in my stomach like a lot of people do. I'm not afraid of public speaking because
Mhm.
I just feel like I was a Toastmaster at the other company without managers telling me. I took a lot of public speaking classes just for fun.
Mhm.
And even after that, I took improv again just for fun. So I don't get nervous at all when I speak, but it's just that I just don't care. So, I think that the fear of people judging you, I think that's one of the biggest fear that a lot of people have.
Yeah.
And I remember that one of the scariest things for me, besides height, was posting on LinkedIn that I was working on startups and blah blah blah. Because I remember even at the other big company, when I do well, people get jealous or they try to destroy you. and I pretty much spend time to be normal. And when I posted on LinkedIn, that was one of my biggest fears, something simple like that, because I still remember like when I was in high school, I used to get like A's in my math classes every single test. And people would make fun of me because,
Mhm.
because you're not normal and you're being
Mhm.
judged all the time, right? If you run 10 miles, you're shown off. And
Mhm.
I get that a lot, like even at the other company where I was faster than a lot of people, I was able to get stuff done. So I
Mhm.
was told to wait 3 days before I sent something out. And I was nominated to the Emerging Leaders program before anyone else. And then I had a talk with my manager because why wasn't she nominated, but I was. And so, quitting my job and basically putting on LinkedIn that I'm doing my thing. And since I've done that, all the projects I've done are crazy because that's unknown. I didn't plan any of it.
Yeah.
I must say, those are all like random projects. Actually, all the projects I've been working on, I can tell you, it's super random, even on a volunteering basis. I was
Mhm.
working on a Loving AI project, and the universe was really amazing because I had an idea about artificial soul in 2014 where I applied to some literacy, didn't get in, and
Mhm.
then somehow end up working with the Sophia Loving AI project and helping with that, which is really close to artificial soul, consciousness. And then I was tutoring for a startup, AP Biology, AP History, and I was actually writing chatbots for that. This is before AI becomes hot. I was just doing it for my students only as private. And someone noticed that. And then I was working on Robots Without Borders where we're creating chatbots for educational purposes, digital AI. And I went to another conference where I was invited by the VC, and I don't know who invited me, but I got an invite to it. I went. And during the entire conference, I was just like, okay, I don't want to tell people what I do. I'm just going to say, I'm a sticker maker. And that was like probably the lowest profile thing ever. I'm like, okay, when people ask you, I'm gonna say I'm a sticker maker. But that doesn't sound impressive in like the whole VC world. So I found one seat left on the table and I sat there. And then when people introduced themselves, I was just like, I'm a sticker maker. And then the guy across the room from me was just like, you're a sticker maker? We're looking for a sticker maker. And I was just like, really? Cool. So at the end of the conference, he came to me and he was just like, yeah, we're looking for a sticker maker. And it turns out that they were doing distributed computation,
Mhm.
for the power cancer research. And it was just random things like that that I'm involved in that
Mhm.
I had not planned for. I really don't know the people beforehand.
Mhm.
It was just really, really random. And it's like complete unknown that I would not even fantasize.
Right. But that's your ability to let go. And by letting go, you are not compromising who you are, but it's almost just the opposite. It's being open and accepting of whatever might come your way. And until you like flip that switch to be open to what the world has for you,
Yeah.
you are closed to the world. You're closed to the universe. Like you need to, if you want to grow like you do, and I think I do,
Yeah.
you need to be open to what everyone and everything and every experience has to offer you. And you can't like shouldn't say can't. If you're open, then I think you have the ability to not judge, because
Yeah.
I think judging limits you when you judge people, when you judge situations, and we all judge to a certain extent, but I certainly don't judge you as a human being
Yeah.
because I want to know what I can learn from you.
Yeah, I think one thing that I learned at the beginning of my evolution journey is I think after I did quit my job, I was reading a lot of books about self love and self acceptance accidentally. It was not like one day I wake up And then I was like, oh, let me read some self-love and self, but normally I thought that was just not cool. Anyway, the
Mhm.
whole meditation thing. So I tried to stay away from that. But accidentally, through some other way, I discovered, and I was reading a lot of Brene Brown, and she talks a little about shame and the difference between shame and guilt.
Mhm.
I guess shame was when, you shame yourself or people shame you. And then guilt, you feel guilty. But I think she distinguishes the difference between something that you do like badly as a mistake versus
Mhm.
shame. So there's a big difference. And
Yeah.
I think just having that foundation really helps, because after reading that particular book, I was just like, oh, this is cool. And then I read the Four Agreements. And I guess for the whole year or two, I was writing a blog at the same time, like coming off of my very serious job to doing a blog. You remember my blog. I would
Yeah.
never had a
Yeah.
chance to do because fashion and my serious job, it really didn't match nicely. When I had freedom, the thing that I wanted to do is, oh, let me write a blog, let me write.
Mhm.
So I did that. And it was fun. For a year or two, everything that I write, it has to be positive. So nothing negative, hate, love, and
Mhm.
writing in that tone for a year or two. And then no gossiping. When I talk with my friends, I don't usually gossip anyways. When they gossip, I always just say, I don't want to participate in this
Mhm.
gossip.
Yeah.
And you would think that your friends would think that you're weird and they won't talk to you again. But actually, it inspired them. Like, I was like, what? As this thing continues, and it becomes like forever. Actually, it's not just 1 year or 2 years. One of my friend would like say something, and we'll talk, and then I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds like gossipy. Let's not talk about that. But it's so weird that people at first might think that you're weird, but then they actually,
No, it's true because you mentioned earlier about the comfort of being with other humans.
yeah,
Whether or not that's going through a new extreme physical experience or you're
yeah,
just hanging out, talking with your friends, there's a certain comfort level to
yeah,
that. So if somebody's gossiping, it can be easier for you
yeah,
and you feel like it's acceptable to do it because other people are doing it. And it's not until somebody with a slightly higher level of awareness and perspective on life comes in and says, hold on, I don't want to be a part of this because of A, B, and C. And
yeah,
then you turn the tables and put what they were doing in front of them, and they realize, all right, that's not what we should be doing because it's just not good. It's just not
yeah.
positive. It's not right.
Brene Brown's book is called The Gift of Imperfection.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was responding to your point about not judging, because the one thing that I've learned is that if you accept yourself and love yourself, because you're probably not perfect, then it's really hard to judge another person because they're not perfect as well. So I think a lot of people judge other people in their spare time. It's like TMZ or whatever people
Mm-hmm.
watch nowadays. But when you really look at your life, you can say that about yourself as well. And there's a certain kind of freedom that comes with not judging people, not judging things.
There is, yeah. And again, I think it's that first step of just being open to
Yeah,
whatever the world, whatever any human has to offer you. Because I learned this a long time ago, and I probably had this conversation with you at dinner
yeah,
one night. Every single one of us has our own unique and individual perspective on life. And
yeah,
even when you and I were sitting down at dinner, even to simplify it, I had a physical perspective that was opposite from you because I was looking at you and what was behind you, and you
mhm,
were looking at me and what was behind me. I
mhm,
couldn't see what you were looking at, and you couldn't see what I was looking at.
mhm.
So, how are we to judge anyone because our lives and perspectives from day one has been completely unique and individual?
Yeah, I think even when you speak to different people, regardless of their status, or whatever the society in the world emphasizes and cares about. Sometimes it could matter to different people, but for me or to me, it didn't really seem to matter anymore. And it's really weird because you grow up learning to be successful, and that's like a certain job, certain things, metrics will have different titles, numbers on Twitter accounts that they have on Facebook and on LinkedIn. And it's kind of weird because when you shift, those things don't really matter anymore because you're accepting yourself. So it doesn't really matter what people say about you to begin with. And then all of a sudden, what people value or what the world value is shifted or
Mhm.
shifts. So
Mhm.
it's completely different. It's super weird, actually.
It is. That's probably the most challenging layer of comfort zone
Yeah.
to break through is the human evolution of that acceptance, of that openness, of we're all human.
But how do you integrate them? I ask that because I feel like once you're evolved and other people might not have been really evolved at the same level,
Mhm.
and people might think that you're weird and all that kinds of stuff. So how do you integrate with a society that values numbers and titles and
Mhm.
all of those good stuff?
I have a pretty philosophical view on that
Yeah.
because the easy answer might be you can study it and become a professor and directly teach other humans
Hmm.
certain aspects of that, but I'm not a structured religious person. I
Yeah.
think I'm spiritual,
Yeah.
and I think our spirit lives on,
Hmm.
and I think how it lives on, I don't know if there's a heaven or hell, but I know our spirit lives on
Yeah.
in other human beings from and by the contact and impact we've had on everyone's life. So you and I have had a lot of conversations
Hmm.
about this. And so I live on through you, and you live on through me.
Hmm.
And every person I come in contact with has a little bit of you that they're being exposed to through me. They will never meet you, but you've impacted me.
Yeah.
And if you're open and accepting, and if your mindset and your spirituality is to grow, is to evolve,
Yeah.
I think that's how we can teach each other, and the legacy can live on infinitely.
Yeah, I can see that. I was doing JavaScript with my niece, but it's for her first time, and she's 7 years old. And I feel even if I die tomorrow, she'll know JavaScript now. Luckily, she loves it. Yeah, because I remember when I think during the time when I met you, my other nephew, who is 17 now,
That's who you named your blog after.
yeah, exactly. One of my blog, I name it for my nephew who loves cars and fish. And when he was really young, he wanted to do a YouTube channel. I don't know if I actually fully told you the story. So his business model was he'll make a funny face at a restaurant, and that would be marketing for the restaurant. And this is when he was like 7 or 8 years old. He did the YouTube channel, he had a few views, no followers, maybe one or two. That was his first YouTube channel. And
Mhm.
what is amazing is that a couple years later, he actually grew it to a lot of followers on YouTube. And he organizes a car meet and he makes videos about drifting and all that kind of stuff. So his crazy idea of making a funny face after his first video became a full-on thing where today he gets A plus. He's AP computer science
Mhm.
or civil engineer where he gets like an A plus or whatever. And I was just talking about Python with him yesterday where he was just like, oh, it's better than JavaScript because you don't have to put the semicolon. He was hanging out with me and we were coding and making YouTube videos. He's open to entrepreneurship because of that, doing something new and unknown with like the hard way. I feel like being a mentor and an advisor at different startups, I see founders who want to take the shortcut
Hmm.
to reach their goals. And because I think the real thing, like the path, is really hard. Whatever
Hmm.
we're talking about, it's really hard to people. It's really hard.
Yeah.
And doing startups from the ground up, you don't have the brand yet.
Hmm.
You don't know anyone. You're not famous. You're talented, but who cares? Everyone else is talented.
Hmm.
And people are not really willing to walk that path of starting from scratch, from
Hmm.
zero. And a lot of founders actually they pick the shortcut. But the
Hmm.
shortcut, like when I do tell them that it doesn't work, I get
Hmm.
yelled at. So how do you actually begin? What is really the first step?
So I think it's actually understanding that this evolutionary process, this evolution of comfort zones,
Yeah.
is the journey.
Hmm.
When I was younger, much younger, I thought I had to reach a certain point in my life, financially, personally, my relationships, and then everything would be okay. And I can remember I did an about face when I got into the footwear business when I was around 30.
Hmm.
And I sat down with someone who was a mentor of mine, and he asked me what I wanted to do down the road. And I explained it to him. And he said, okay, this is one path that you can take.
Hmm.
And you can do step A and then step B. And he carried it through 5 or 6 steps.
Hmm.
And I immediately thought, I don't have time for that. I want the end result. I
Hmm.
want to be there now. How do I get there now?
Hmm.
And how I got there, which is where I'm at now and continuing the journey, is almost exactly the steps that he laid out for me.
Hmm.
And when I started going through that process, I realized the only the only end that we get to is when we're done, when we're finished as a human being. Like this whole process of growing and learning and achieving and failing and doing it all over again is the journey through the expansion of your comfort zones.
Let me paraphrase that because I feel like society taught us very differently. Because I feel like that was my life before. Because I had a 4.2 GPA, went to Berkeley,
Mm-hmm.
actually got a job offer, and went to law school. So I had to decline a job offer, went to law school, work at a few different companies, work at the last company.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember people look at you 1 or 2 times when they hear the places you work at, they don't believe it or whatever. And you really, at a young age, really think that you're really successful because of everything that you're able to achieve. And then I realized that was not even part of the journey. Life is not the journey.
Right.
To
When you
wrestle with the mountain lion
right
naked.
when you begin to realize I need to be naked wrestling with that mountain lion, that's when it begins. And then it never ends until you take your last breath. There's not a finish line. That's the only is when we take our last breath. And I try not to have regrets, but I'm so thankful for realizing that it's all about the journey. Yeah, no, I don't think it's weird because we are force fed from the majority of humans in our life. This is how life is supposed to go. You're supposed to go through school to college, graduate, get a job, get married, have kids, do this, do that. And that's what life is supposed to be. And it's not until you start, whether or not you question them personally
Mhm.
or you question yourself, you have these inner dialogues with yourself questioning, hold on, why is this the way I'm supposed to do it? And why am I supposed to go down this path when I should be able to choose whatever path, whatever steps I want to take to start this journey?
And I think it's beautiful because I think the core of you, of the human, the core of the human becomes, that identity is not tied to anything that you do or where you work at. And I think that's pretty awesome. Like people always ask you, what are you, where are you from, what do you do? And it's just really hard to explain. And I feel more than ever, I can be who I am. I can talk to you here about evolving your comfort zone. The next minute, I can code or I can make a jewelry.
Yeah, we've
You
talked
know,
photography, we've talked, you and
yeah,
I have talked about 1,000 different subjects.
the core of your being is not defined by all of that. Society likes to label us and put us into a bucket.
Yes.
And because you're in that bucket, you can be in other bucket,
Mm-hmm.
which really puts limitations on you because you could be anything you want. It's weird. So I think this is really part of that journey. And some of the stuff that I've been doing is there's certain things I'm really good at digitally, and there's certain good things that I'm really good physically. I was making 3D jewelry before I could actually do physical jewelry, making, physical earrings and stuff
Yep.
like that. And I thought like I'm really not good at making physical jewelry, but then one day I just began making physical jewelry and I was pretty good at it. And so I was able to actually discover different things that I have. And had I not done it, I wouldn't have known that I have those skill sets within me. I think that's just really one thing, is that you have mentors and people around you that could help you.
Mm-hmm.
And you pretty much have everything in yourself that you need.
You start off in this world perfect. That's as simply as I can state it, is you have everything. You're perfect as you are. And I think half the battle of just achieving who you want to be in life is battling those other human beings that say, you can do this, you can't do that, you have to be going down this path because that's the bucket that we need to put you in. And it's hopefully me to you to me and a lot of other people that actually are there supporting you, saying, why do you have to go down that path? Why can't you
Yeah.
go down this path? Or why can't you go backwards? Or why can't you go up or down? Or to your point, there's no limitations, but it sometimes helps to have other people that support that and tell
Yeah.
you it's okay to be whoever, whatever, however you want to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes people could get mad at you. And I just wanted to put a disclaimer out there because I surely get yelled at sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times because I'm telling the truth or I'm doing something. It just could be anything simple. If you speak up, you're not classy. If you do something and that person is the head of marketing, for example, and for some reason they really haven't thought of a new way or a new way of doing marketing, even if you're an advisor, you still get yelled at by people on your team. And then sometimes other people could be at the beginning of their evolution. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I see that. And sometimes it's better that you don't, that I don't change it, their path that much. You can influence them, but gently. Because sometimes people need to learn their lessons or to grow. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I may not want to interrupt that much.
Right.
I'm not saying that the comfort zone is always nice. It's supposed to be like that, and that's okay. And sometimes it's easy to forget that. Sometimes I'll go to different conferences, and sometimes it gets really crazy where I'll be speaking on privacy, and privacy would be one of the things I've done for the last decades, probably. And one of the men of the organizer would tell me, "Oh, we put you here to give you credibility." And I would be like, credibility? Credible for what? I do privacy law and I've spoken about privacy many years ago. If you get a lot of it, it could be depressing. And so you just really have to be aware of that.
You
And
do.
it's not to say that, whatever people tell you is like super normal and you don't care, because then you'll become a psychopath. Because psychopaths don't care because you don't have a conscience. Assuming that you do have a conscience, that it could be hard. People might be against you. You might be opposed.
Yeah.
However, it's really that core of your gun. And it's really going back to that centeredness, that coreness that,
It
you know,
is.
that you kind of go through.
Yeah, and I think that's all part of the journey as well. I think we are, or we should be constantly at least being conscious of
Mhm.
ourself, and I guess making checks on ourselves to make sure
Mhm.
like we are on the journey we want. And yeah, and sometimes the journey leads us down the wrong path, or sometimes it leads us into a brick wall or over a cliff or
Yeah.
wherever. That's not always positive. You have to live and learn and regroup and learn from not just your mistakes, but learn from your successes and everything that you love about life. And I think spend your life finely tuning and honing who you want to evolve into.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is pretty much part of it. Because if you are evolving and you're with a bunch of people that put you down
Hmm.
or make you do things that you don't want to, then that don't really sound good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You need to have the confidence in who you are as an individual to stick up for who you are.
Yeah.
But I think that once you realize that you're on this journey
Yeah.
of evolution, then you build up the self-confidence and you build up the experiences that teach you, all right, hold on, I don't need to stick in this group of humans that want to go down this way. It's okay if I'm the only one that doesn't want to go down that path because it doesn't work with who I am as a human being.
Another thing that I realize is time, because I just feel like sometimes people ask you, when will I see things? I was on a podcast a couple years ago, and the podcast host really didn't understand a lot of things that I was saying. So I just, you and I, Brian, are talking about evolving your comfort zone. And I think if you don't understand what we're talking about, I think it's okay. Because I think evolution, because I didn't really understand a lot of things that Brian was saying and my other friend was saying as
Mm-hmm.
well. It's okay because I think evolution takes time. I think even animals, they change and they morph
Mm-hmm.
based on time as well. So sometimes it's okay and just to be patient. I think if you force it, because like friends are, some people are like, how do I know when I see this? And I'm just like, I can't really, tell you. It's just something that you yourself have to learn. And it's really your timeline because it's not mine, yours. I would just be patient. I wouldn't.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's a great word, patience, because a lot of us that might be type A personalities sometimes don't have a lot of patience. And it takes us being aware of that to take a step back and realize, all right, take a breath. It's okay.
Yeah, or for type A people who are going through the evolution, I just feel like the universe has big things for you. Sometimes it can turn your world upside down for you to actually realize and learn something. There's certain books about it as well, but usually people don't really understand the book until they actually go through it.
Hmm.
Our life is just so organized before. My mailbox is organized, my closet is organized.
Hmm.
And it takes some kind of weird things that we can't control for us to learn that lesson
Yeah,
to actually understand everything that we're talking about.
right.
If you're a type A and you're like, oh, I wanted to really understand and evolve it.
It's the evolutionary journey. But again, if you and I weren't open to new experiences, we would have sat in our seats on the plane
Mhm.
for I don't remember where we were going, but we would have sat there for hours, and I would have pretended like I was reading or doing work, and you would have done the same thing. And here we are. How many years later? I don't even know how many years later.
Yeah, it's so weird because the first thing we talk about was comfort zone too. I
Right.
don't know how that started.
So if we weren't open to that, like subconsciously,
Yeah.
if we weren't open to that, because I certainly don't talk comfort zones with 99% of the people I meet, because they would think, what is this guy talking about? They wouldn't get
Yeah.
it. They wouldn't be open to it.
I was thinking it's Puerto Rico.
I want to say you were going home
Yeah, I was not home in Puerto Rico, I think, but Puerto Rico was not a comfort zone trip. What is interesting about Puerto Rico is I was just basically stayed at every single city. And I actually wanted to stay at the forest. It was fun.
Yeah. But if you and I could have been at different points of our journey,
Yeah,
but it's that just being aware of and
yeah,
being open to whatever this world has to offer us.
yeah. It's really interesting because even when I went to Burning Man for the first time, when I went to VR hackathon, people were like, "You're a Burning Man person," and I'm like, "What do you
Mhm.
mean? I don't understand it." Because it's supposed to be life changing. When I went, I was just like, my life has changed already. Like you, Brian, because
Yeah.
Burning Man, you're probably fitting perfectly because I don't really care whether I'm with people or by myself. I'll still
Yeah.
enjoy it
Yeah.
and I'll survive
Hmm.
because I don't really need to be stuck at one place
Hmm.
to do things that scare me. I would do
Yeah.
that in real life, even before Burning Man, like real life. It's pretty interesting. And
Yeah.
I think it's so weird, though. It's nice as well. It's very different. And you don't really find a lot of people with, you can call that a mindset, you can call
Hmm.
it a shift. I don't really know. It really depends on the person, but it involves like everything.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. No, I agree. Like every one of us, even if we maintain where we are in the comfort zone we currently are in,
Mhm.
that's our path
Yeah.
that we choose to stay in or choose to take. And I just learned a long time ago that the world and human beings have a lot more to offer me than
Yeah.
the world and the universe can teach me a lot more than I can teach myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And one thing people always constantly ask me, we're like, wow, how do you learn so fast? And how old are you? Because only young people could learn fast or whatever. And I don't know what's old and what is not because age
Right.
often doesn't matter anymore. So I just tell
Mhm.
people that I'm always 28. I can learn anything I want. What is hard, what is easy, that all changed.
Mhm.
And it's just different now. I feel like
Yeah.
all of a sudden, because of your evolution,
Hmm. Yeah.
your limitation is there's no limitation.
No, there are no
It has changed.
limitations.
You can basically pick up or learn anything that you want to learn.
You can. And I think that's what's fun about the journey once you make the decision to be open
Yeah,
and to anything and to realize that, all right, I have a comfort zone, but
yeah,
I have the ability to expand that comfort zone and to break through the current one I'm in and get to the next one. And then realize again, it goes back to there's no limits. There's no
yeah.
limitation.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, like, I remember just a couple of days ago, I was hosting a conference and I didn't sleep the entire night. I think that I would be tired. Then I was interviewing a few investors about watching, and in my head, I was just like, could I usually don't write down questions. I usually
Mhm.
ask questions on the fly
Mhm.
because that's how I'm trained. I mean, I talk to people all day. I don't write. I don't take notes.
Mhm.
So I'm used to asking questions from my head, and I feel like that's even better than me writing lists of questions.
Mhm.
At first, I was just questioning myself, like, can I do that even though I didn't sleep all night? How would that be? And it turned out that I was,
Yes. Yeah. Because it is all mental. Just about everything in life starts with whether or not you think you can do it or you can't do it. And I think to your point about taking notes or writing down discussion points or questions, if you write them down, then I think mentally you're going to try to stay in that bucket.
yeah,
You're going to try to stay in those lanes of what you wrote down instead of being open to the fact that this discussion can go anywhere and to allow it to go anywhere and manage it
yeah.
throughout its own journey.
Do write down questions for certain people. And sometimes I feel like when I do that, people prepare the answer for that question and they focus on that and they get nervous. I think one time I was chatting with someone and he prepared all the answers, and then one or two last questions, like just asking the question outside my list. That's why I called him, had to do. We went through his response and he actually did a whole self analysis, and he was just like, my answer to that question was better than my prepared reading from their notes. For a radio show, when you're just talking naturally, I think it's just more, it's just a lot better.
Yeah, it is, because there's much more freedom inside to allow the conversation and discussion to go wherever it might go.
Yeah. Is there anything else about comfort zone?
No, I think we have covered a lot. I think my biggest take from this and message is in acknowledging and being aware that you are on an evolutionary journey, and it's going to take you through comfort zones, and having the awareness and the ability to realize that you can expand your comfort zones.
Yeah, I think for me is to recognize that these comfort zones are layered. So you can peel one layer off and then there's another layer. It's a process.
It is.
So,
Mhm.
so just layer after layer. There's certain things that I haven't done yet.
Mhm.
And I've been putting it off. And then I get a nudge on the text. Have you done this yet, Michelle? And I just have to shift my mindset. And then I would have a reminder. If you do this, it'll help the world make it a little bit better. And I was just like, okay, I'll do it. And it's, yeah, I think we're constantly growing and learning.
We are. And again, I think what's necessary is being aware of and open to the fact that we are growing and we are evolving and we're on this journey. And it's really up to us to tell the story
Mhm.
and direct this evolutionary journey that is us.
So I guess if you're listening to it and you're going through some kind of evolution with regards to your comfort zone, please feel free to reach out to us. And my Twitter is laptop_radio. How about yours, Brian? Do you have any social media or any email?
My email is brianalves24@gmail.
Mhm.
And I am on Facebook and Instagram.
You have his email. You can reach out to him.
So you can reach out to me on my email.
It's a conversation that we've been having for years, and life just kept changing. And I think if you are living comfortably and do not want it to live or evolve your comfort zone, I think that's okay too. I have a
Mhm.
friend whose risk level is zero, like he has a constant life where it's always at zero. He works at the same job for decades. His financial thing is always, there's no up or down, it's just constant.
Yeah.
He lives in the same place forever.
Mm-hmm.
And he basically has no risk. And it's okay. That's what he chose.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is okay. It's not up to us to dictate or
Yeah.
suggest that everybody has to continually be trying to expand their comfort zones, because, yeah, for some people, they are forever comfortable, and that's okay.
And that's okay. It's kind of funny though. I think when you decide to evolve in your comfort zone, your life constantly change. It can be uncomfortable
Mm-hmm.
because you're doing different things, you're experimenting with different things, and you're open to different things because it's kind of like a roller coaster.
Mm-hmm.
But it's worth it, I think. Even during the pandemic, my intention this year was creativity. So I've been doing creativity every day, pretty
Mm-hmm.
much. And people kind of get inspired, but if they don't do their goal every day, I guess I'll follow up once in a while. But I'm not going to push it because you don't want to be a bully.
No. And it's not up to us to judge.
Yeah, it's just funny. Sometimes I joke about it, but yeah, you still want to be graceful and you want to be tender,
Yeah.
with other humans as well and respectful. But yeah, sometimes the journey of evolution could be hard and daunting.
Mm-hmm.
And even taking the first step is difficult, could be difficult. But thank you, Brian. This is awesome.
Yeah, it was great talking with you.
Yep. Bye bye.
Bye.